Hi, my name is Ed Stevenson, and if you've heard me talk publicly or online, you've heard me talk about the why people become addicted to drugs, alcohol, anger, pornography, and it has to do a lot with what happened to them as a child. And there was a study done by the CDC and Kaiser Permanente, and that study they interviewed 17,000 adults. And there was a correlation, and they called this study the Adverse Childhood Experience Study, or ACEs. And the outcome of that study was pretty startling. Those who they scored it, and if you scored 1 ACE, 2 ACE, 3 ACE, 4 ACE, how prone you are to having certain health issues, and addiction being one of those. And I can tell you firsthand, growing up, that it's true. My brother died at age 37 from drugs and alcohol. My nephew was only 39, and we grew up in a pretty crazy house. And when I was 10 or 11, I used to go to the bars with my dad all the time. And then we moved to Idaho, and my parents bought a bar. And so I lived in a bar for 3 years, and I got to see firsthand what goes on in a bar, and the bar fights, my parents drinking and all the time. And one night my parents got into an argument, and my mom got me involved in that argument and actually got me to take sides. Well, I laughed at my dad, and 2 days later my dad attempted suicide for the first time. And it was pretty traumatic on the family. And after the second time, they put him in treatment for 6 months in a mental hospital. And then on the third time, I woke up 2 o'clock in the morning and come downstairs, and there's lights flashing in the house. And I come into the living room, and there's my dad laying on the couch with his hunting rifle across his lap, with the trigger, with his toe strumming that trigger, and the barrel pointed right at his head. And there's police and paramedics all surrounding him, trying to get him to give up that rifle. And here I'm, 11, 12 years old, and I felt invisible. Well, they got the rifle away from him. They took him off to some more treatment, and looking back at that 40 years later, I blamed myself for my dad's attempted suicide because I laughed at him. And that caused a lot of issues in my life. I became an alcoholic, and fortunately, almost 8 years ago, I quit drinking completely. And now, I've gone through Celebrate Recovery. I run recovery groups, and now I get to work with people who are struggling with things that happened in their childhood. And you see the homeless population, and you look at what they've gone through, and many of them, when you talk to them, have suffered abuse. And there was a girl that I worked with for a while. She was actually molested for the first time when she was 7 or 8. And when I met her, she was 36. But she ran away at 14 with a 24-year-old. Ended up getting pregnant, had like 6 miscarriages. It was a very abusive relationship. And I'm working with her, and she's writing down everything that happened to her. And we're talking, and she puts down her pen, and she says, "Ed, I'm not a piece of meat, am I?" And I said, "No, you're not. You're a victim of what happened to you." And you look around on the streets, and you look at all these people, and you think, what happened to them? And unfortunately, we send people away for treatment. And I call it a 28-day vacation, because it's some fancy resort, and it's nothing like real life. But they expect them to recover completely from their addiction in 28 days. Yeah, most of them are told that they need to do some intensive outpatient, and many of them do. But unfortunately, 80% of those who go through treatment relapse within the first year. And many of them go through treatment 7 or 8 times. And unfortunately, according to SAMHSA, 89% of those need treatment never get it from a qualified treatment facility. A lot of them go through AA or other things. But the reason I bring that up is because if you've been in long-term addiction, you probably have mental illness. And I always say, is it the chicken or the egg? Did you have mental illness before you started your addiction, or do you have it now? So that's something we really need to look at. And proper treatment takes years. It's not a 28-day vacation. It's not sending someone to a 6-month rehab. It's an ongoing process, and I liken it to cancer. It takes 3 to 5 years before they actually rewire their brain and are on a good path. And we need tools that help those who are in recovery stay in recovery and focus long term, because we need to rebuild their lives and get rid of that thug mentality. And the thug mentality is the lying, cheating, stealing that they develop to stay in their addiction, to stay alive on the streets. And it takes a long time for them to stop doing that, stop behaving like a thug. And we need solutions, real solutions that solve the problem, not just put a Band-Aid on it.